Hey guys, welcome to the show, Jungle Brothers Podcast. It's Joey here, and today's chat is myself and a fella named Trent Baldock. Now, Trent's got some big energy. I first met Trent many years ago when I lived in Bondi. He's a local Bondi boy, and he refers to the area as Scum Valley, which is a story in and of itself about the heritage of the area. We reconnected some time ago when he was down at our gym as part of the Rise Foundation Australia Walk the Walk. Now, if you know us, you know we do quite a bit of work with the Rise Foundation. They are fighting for mental health awareness and helping to educate the community about the realities of mental health. Trent is a close friend of Ben Higgs, the founder of the organisation, and feels very passionately about the mental health piece himself. He was there at the walk. We got to spend a couple of hours together, walking, chatting, getting to know each other. I find him to be a super fascinating guy. He's come up through the hardcore music scene. He has his own band called Relentless. He has toured the world with his band. They've started their own record label in order to get themselves out there. He's a marriage celebrant. He was straight edge for over a decade, and he's now an advocate for mental health. And he's an unlikely hero. He never wanted to be in the position he's in, but he's found himself having quite a bit of influence within his community, and I think it's a really special thing to highlight. So really epic chat with Trent. We had some big storms rolling in on the day. It was a Friday evening. I get the storm about 10 minutes or 5 minutes before he does. I'm in the inner west. Trent is in Bondi. So, cool thing. I think it kind of messed up the connection just momentarily at the start of the episode, but it levels out pretty quickly. Really epic chat. Trent's fighting for an amazing cause. If you enjoy the episode, please share it. Send it to someone who would like it. Help to support what we're doing, but also help to get Trent's message out there and support what he's doing. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoy the show with Trent Baldock. Trent Baldock, we're live, my brother.
How are we?
Mate, good.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm very well. Friday afternoon, just finished work. I had a lovely shower, put on some fresh clothes. I'm feeling ready to chat.
Mate, you've got an impressive backdrop there with the sneakers. I'm guessing this is a bit in that scene of the sneaker pimp kind of collection vibe.
Oh, it's bad. And I keep getting written off. Like, I've bought shoes for people and they wear them. I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, unlike you, we wear the sneakers. I'm like, yeah, sorry. Sometimes I double down. Collectibles, and I wear one. I shelve one. Yeah.
Is that what, for people who are in that realm like you, is that how you do it? You buy two, wear one, store the other?
Sometimes, this all started years ago when I loved my first pair of classic. I think they're all authentic or not even old school, like one of the original Vans, these light blue leathers. And I was like, canvas. And I was like, amazing. Look at they fit. So I bought them, wore them home. I'm like, I need another pair. And they sat on my shelf. And then they never made that color again. And then once mine had got holes in, I wore them again. Everyone's like, whoa, look at them. I'm like, bought them years ago. I just had two pairs. So I was like, this is how you do it. You thrash one, and then you've always got your favorite pairs on restock when they're ready.
It's a funny human quality where we like to hoard things.
Oh,
and I've always done it myself. Like I will, when I open my t-shirt drawer, I've got all of my good t-shirts, which I fold like it's in a shop. So you can, so it's perfect. And, and then I've got my old t-shirts that I fold in a less flattering way, and they go to the side, and I train in those ones.
Yep.
And then the other ones I just, I wear when I got to look crisp. But the fucking thing is, and I laugh about this quite often, is some of those new ones are 10 years old.
Oh.
But I keep them in such good condition because I'm so anal about that shit.
Yeah. Mine's even worse. Mine will be, I've got my shitty ones that are 20 years old, my newer ones that are a week, 10 years old, and I still haven't worn them. And I'll keep thrashing the old beaters, being like, no, they've just got a little bit more in them. I don't want to try the new one yet because then I have to throw the old one out. So I just keep the old beaters going. And yeah, my closet and shit, it's the opposite of reverse savings. It's like I'm paying for stuff that sits there and gets shelved, never worn, never looked at. And I don't even think they're increasing in value, a lot of them.
No, that's right.
God.
Mate, where does that come from in your, you're in the hardcore scene, which is something I wanted to quiz you a bit about, but where does that that freshness come from? What is that something you picked up growing up in the eastern suburbs?
I don't even know, because funny enough, if you knew me growing up, especially a couple of people like Pilks and other people in my band, I dress shit. I have the nicest stuff, but I don't wear them. So my fashion sense is like I have the best fashion sense, but the worst fashion attire. It's the worst. Like, even like I've had my girl around and she'll be like, why don't you wear any of these? Like, can you wear a nice pair of shoes out to dinner? I'm like, oh, I don't know if it's the right occasion. It's like, well, what is the occasion? If you don't wear them out with dinner with me, when do you wear them? Like, but no, I don't know. When I was younger, I could never afford this stuff. So I think it was more an independence thing for me. So when I was younger, I was the Target. I would rip tags off my Target clothes, or I'd get one pair of etnies, little Velcro etnies or something. And I had one auntie. She used to take every one of us 5 kids shopping for our birthday. That was the only time of year she took us. And we used to get one outfit. So we get one pair of Billabong boardies and one Quicksilver tee. And I never had any brands. So that was like my gold there, you know what I mean? Like I had the old Okalupo, like flower shorts, and and that was just all. So I think when I finally worked my ass off, and a lot of kids this day and age are rocking like $1,000 shoes at the age of 15, but I'm glad I didn't, because now I worked my ass off and I pay for it up front. No one ever paid for it. And so even if I buy 2 of them, I can look at them and be like, I did that. You know what I mean? And it's definitely like people can look at their house and go like, I built this, but I'm not there yet. But with my shoe collection, I'm proud. And with my clothes, that I've got to a point in my life where I don't have to struggle or do anything bad to get the money to do that. And I can work hard, and I have these things to show for it. And you just, it gives yourself a little bit of like, not self-worth, but a bit of accomplishment that could never happen when I was younger. And I was always told myself one day I'd love to have like Nikes. When I was younger, I could never afford Nikes. Like my dad owned a sportswear company, and I'd rock hand-me-downs from then, and then my brothers would get that. So I think definitely in the hardcore scene, Nikes. That's where I found Nikes. Air Max 1s. All the bands that I grew up watching were like Air Max 1s. Like 100%. So I think that was when my infatuation started with shoes.
Nikes are synonymous, like, with the hardcore scene. They're popular there.
Well, funny enough, so like growing up, I reckon I would see like Vans and Globe and DC as skate shoes, and then I'd see like streetwear, like definitely like Nike, like the Air Max 1s and lights and 90s and all them were very, very big in the hardcore scene to me. So back in the day when I was growing up, it was like a baggy tee, what are they called? Dickies pants and a pair of Nikes. Like that was just no brand, not big brand, no expensive stuff, just simple. And that was it, with like a camo flat brim hat or something like that. Yeah. The culture's definitely changed. The fashion's definitely changed over the years, but skating to me growing up was DC and Globe. And my first inkling and finding about Nikes would have been through the hardcore, just seeing, mate, it was like a fashion show without being like a fashion show. You know what I mean? Like you'd see 5 dudes up there, and sometimes they'd be wearing the same color Nikes. And it was definitely when American bands would come over here, because I didn't have that much money growing up and I didn't see that. And the American bands would come over and they'd just get their Nikes for like $80 over there or 110. So they'd fly over with the best Air Max, and you'd be like, all right, like, fuck, nice. I feel that. Yeah. It's like a little fashion show of 5 dudes walking nice tickets.
What was that? That was like when you were growing up in the 90s, late 80s? How old are you?
Yeah, so I was born 86. I started going to shows 03, 04. So, yeah, I was probably in my teens, skatey, surfy, punk. Yeah, late 90s.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny. Back then, has the storm hit your end yet?
No, but it's getting dark.
Dude, it's hammering down here. Yeah, it's kicking off. For anyone listening, it's Friday afternoon, late Friday arvo, big storms rolling in. Trent, you're in Maroubra or Bondi?
North Bondi.
North Bondi, my bad. And I'm in Balmain, so we're both scoping the same weather coming in. But it's funny, I remember back then when I used to skate at around that time. I was born in 83. So I was skating in the 90s and stuff. And it was if you were lucky enough, like if you knew someone that got to travel to America, they always came back with the best shit. And it was like stuff that you couldn't get here. Yeah. And even if you could, you couldn't afford it.
Yeah. Yeah. Nah.
Being
not even that, like it was even, I think our internet's really slow.
Yeah, I think the storm's giving us a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, to the degree. We'll just talk slow in between talks, so we go
Wait,
back and forth.
let me try this. I'm just
Yeah,
going to
same
turn.
thing with me.
I'm going to turn my camera off. Let's just go with that for a minute and
Yeah,
see if the connection
yeah, that's good.
improves. Is that better?
Okay, sweet. Yeah, sweet. Yeah, so as you said about your friends will travel overseas, it'd be similar to us. I'd be the same. Except when I went over there, it was like a whole new experience. So I landed in America. First time I went over there, I went over with 2 suitcases to tour. And I ended up buying 8 pairs of Nikes. I ended up 6 pairs of Dickies pants. I got every color tour tee, 15 flat brims. I got all this stuff, like so many different pieces. And you'd come back because everything was so much cheaper over there, and like you just get it. Whereas Dickies over here are like $180, where Dickies over there are like $12 a pair of pants. Like it's like workwear. So it got to the point that the second time I went to America, you take a backpack and you just buy everything over there. You go over there with a backpack and you buy your suitcase, you buy your clothes, socks, underwear, like pennies. And yeah, you save so much money touring America.
Mate, tell me about your. I'm putting my camera back on just because it doesn't feel right to speak to the blank
That's
screen.
right. Yeah.
Tell me about your band, and tell me about the hardcore scene. Like, so I'll tell you my only run-in with the hardcore scene was when I lived in Bondi in the apartment where I met you, where I lived with my cousin Rick, and he said to me, "Dude, I want to have a hardcore show at our place." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Yeah, like I'm down. Well, what's that?" And he's like, "Well, you know, we're gonna have a few bands coming in. There's a couple of my mates' band. There's another mate's band. Then there's this band who are in town from Japan, and they're all gonna play here in the living room, and it'll be sick." And I was like, "Fuck, whatever." We already had a skate ramp, like a half pipe in the living room.
Skate park and yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I'm like, "Oh, whatever. I guess a concert, yeah." And to me, I'm like, hardcore. It never made sense because I'd never heard of the genre, and it sounds like techno. I'm thinking it's like, I knew it wasn't, but I just kind of, I didn't picture I didn't figure it was a metal thing. Anyway, we had this fucking hardcore show and it was awesome. And the place was full of people. And I remember taking a bunch of photos and shit, but that was all I knew of it. And it's not, and every now and again, I'll meet someone and they'll be into it. And obviously I met you along that way through my cousin. Can you give us a background on what that scene's like and what it is?
Yeah. So it's pretty much like, it's like a underlying subculture of like-minded kids that share a love for heavy punk hardcore music and pretty much connect on the same level. Lots of outcasts, lots of unheard, lost kids pretty much, and they just found this home inside this new family. Pretty much it's positive aggression. That's the way I can probably say it. So as you've seen like hardcore music firsthand, and it probably blew your mind. You're like, whoa, this is a bunch of violent people jumping around, punching each other, crowd surfing, front flipping. But then the song will stop and everyone stares at the crowd, silent, wanting to hear what the singer says. And then he'll talk about his values, his morals, and where he grew up, and this song means this, and it took him through a hard time in his life with this, and everyone's like feeling, and then boom, the next song comes in and it's fucking chaos again. And I think it's just the fact that a lot of people that just could never find a place in society or never find a place in the world could adapt, and that was like home for them. They definitely found connected, and that was definitely for me. I was always a smaller, not the sportiest, definitely not the smartest. Wasn't that athletic, so I didn't fit in anywhere. I was almost like the cool kid with the not the cool kids, and not the cool kid with the cool kids. So I was always like, I'd hang out with like all these cool guys, but I was always on the outskirts. And then all the other kids who were the outcasts like me because I knew the cool guys. And so I'd always just be in the middle, but I was almost never good enough for either. And you were always just trying to find your way. And then when I was younger, I used to drink a lot. I had a bunch of problems with that. With the skate park, I just saw the way people were acting around alcohol, and through the subculture of punk hardcore, I found out about straight edge as well, which pretty much at that time in my life saved my life. I chose sobriety and didn't drink as you'll have a sip of beer. This is a great story.
Ice cold beer, delicious. But yeah.
That part of my life, hardcore introduced me to something called straight edge, which is abstaining from drugs and alcohol. And for the next 11 and a half years, I was sober, traveled the world, went some amazing places, did some amazing things. And without hardcore, I would have never found out about being told that you don't have to drink. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're growing up being like, you're not cool unless you drink. You don't fit in a party unless you drink. So I learned about that through the hardcore music, and it pretty much saved my life and was able to take me around the world. So that was pretty much my experience. I'm very grateful with the band that I've made. I'm just going to shut my window. We're going crazy now.
Yeah, bro, it's kicking off over there.
The rain's about to hit me.
So
yeah,
just
my
chilled
band,
out on this side.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, it's coming over here. So Relentless, a Sydney hardcore band that's been together, the frontman for about 13 years now. We all met at shows, never knew each other. We were all there for the same reason, watching music, getting a release on a Friday evening, probably had a shitty week, wanted to listen to heavy music, get a bit of the aggression out. And then through that, we started the band. Over the past 13 years, we've released 3 full-lengths. Turn the curse. 2 full-lengths, an EP and a demo. We've been to America twice, Europe once, Southeast Asia twice, New Zealand once, and around Australia many, many times. So grateful for those opportunities. And it's been during this lockdown that we've really reconnected because we haven't been doing much lately. I've been speaking to my boys in Relentless, and we're actually still trying to fathom what we've done. Like the festivals we've played, the bands we've played with, we'll text each other and be like, "Wait, do you remember when we watched the sunrise in Arizona while we were driving through from Phoenix to Flagstaff?" And I'm just like, man, who would have ever thought? Like, really? Like, that is... Yeah, like little things like that. Like, oh, yeah, we're just cruising through the Grand Canyon before we're playing a show. Fuck, there's 5 of us in a Ford Explorer for 30 days sitting upright with the whole back. Like, yeah, it's just a dream. Like, it's amazing to look back at it now when lockdown came in and everything just came to a halt and you start reminiscing on the things. I'm definitely grateful that I can look back and see some of the things that I was grateful to do.
I saw that you started your own record label, Dogfight.
Yep, Dogfight Records.
Has that nurtured, like, has that been the label for Relentless from the beginning, or was that more of a recent thing?
Nah, that was pretty much Relentless was the reason why that started. So myself in Relentless, and then the frontman of a band back in the day called No Love Lost, Daniel Pilkington. The 2 of us were singing in bands. We had nothing out, and we came to each other. We're like, why do we keep messaging all these people asking us to book us on tours? Why do we keep messaging all these people to put out our records? Why don't we just do it? So the 2 of us kind of came together, and that was where we started Dogfight Records. And we released a band from Melbourne. We released a band from Sydney, and then the other 2 bands were No Love Lost and Relentless. So that was our first thing, like going back 2008, I think. 2008 now. We started 2008, 2007 to 2009, somewhere around there.
Yep.
And then from there, other bands have broken away, but Relentless is now with Resist for our last record. So on our early stuff is on Dogfight Records, and then the most recent was with Resist Records from Newtown, who do amazing things for the hardcore scene in Australia and definitely the world. But yeah, Dogfight, mate, back in the day, even I did a podcast not that long ago with a more hardcore-based one, and he just had this list of everything that we'd done, and it was mind-boggling yet again. I'm like, all the releases, and this was back in the day when there was no Instagram. Like, we used to print demo CDs and hand write on them, like burn CDs.
Yeah.
Like, we weren't as old school as cassette tapes, but still burning your 3-song demo to hand out at shows, printing your flyers. Like, I don't think people they do a demo now, it's just on YouTube. Like, I don't think anyone's ever flyed for a show before. Like, standing at the front of a show, handing out flyers for my band or for as a record label owner handing out shows, being like, hey, what are you doing next week? Come to this. It's like it's all one post now. It's all Instagram. Like it's crazy to see what we had to do back then. And even thinking now, hearing like bands like Madball and Terror talking about what they did when they started, and then this is hard for me to fathom. So I can't imagine what they were doing before even MySpace and Facebook and like. So, yeah, that was the record label. And right now, I still have stock. The site's down right now. We're about to relaunch it just on a different platform for selling, more so like a Shopify platform rather than the blog, which I used to have, because I didn't have enough time to fill out weekly stuff and talk. So it's just going to become, when it gets relaunched, it's just going to be a store now, just a little storefront. And there is potential. I've definitely spoken to a couple of people to get some old renewed stuff put into vinyl, some other things. So maybe in 2022 we might revamp with some little releases or something. But really just have to wait and see.
What do you think about that accessibility to marketing and stuff that we have now? Like, it's easy to get flyers printed and you can put stuff on YouTube and Instagram and it's all digital. Do you think any of that makes it easier for someone who's trying to start a band or get their name out there? Or do you still have to trudge up the same hills to get shit done?
You still have, do you know what? I'm going to say it is incredibly easier, but also you're jumping through the same hoops. So what you got to think of is the fact that if I can go to a show and hand out a flyer or print off a demo, so can the other band that might be looking to get in the same slot as a show for me, you know what I mean? Or they want to get the attention of the record label. So now everyone's got the same, if you're going to spend the money, everyone's got the same platforms. Yeah. So the accessibility is there the same. It just depends on how you attack it. So back when I was growing up, I was calling it like guerrilla advertising. Like, I think this is big now. I'm not too sure, but so I would just message everyone over Australia and be like, hey, who wants to get a free show to this? And I'd send them a flyer, a t-shirt, and a bunch of stickers. And then so whenever the show was coming through there, there'd be stickers up, they'd be flying, they'd have it to like, so everywhere would take care of themselves. And you kind of got to use the platform to your advantage. So the digital side of it, you're accessible to a lot more people, but people's attention span is so fucking small now because it's so easy. Back in the day, if you were, with a cassette, you wanted to skip a song, you had to either listen to it or get it out and move it. Yeah. Same with CDs. You have to get up, walk to the fucking Discman or the vinyl and skip it. Yeah. Whereas now, I could be running like, what's her name, Siri or that fucking YouTube thing in another room connected to another thing, and I could just go, hey, Sauce, change the song, like, cancel that song. Change the channel. Like,
I hate this song. Never play this song to me again.
Exactly. Cancel it off my list. Or even with digital stuff, you kind of pretty much have to make the first 10 seconds of any clip the best part of the clip.
Yeah.
Because if you put on like even a song now, like I'm definitely to blame. Like, mate, I could go through, back in the day, I'd be like Madball, My Youth, boom, straight in. Listen, skip this song, not my favorite. Oh, yep. Whereas now, I'll be halfway through a song and go to Spotify and change it to another just because I can. Yeah. And it's just, I can go from artist to artist to discography to, like, your accessibility is insane.
Yeah.
Whereas back in the day, Revolutionary was a fucking 6-stack CD player. You could go through 6.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that was a pimp car. Like, fuck, that's coming up in the world. Whereas you'd listen to a CD all the way through because you didn't want to change it because there was so much to do. It was a lot harder to do it. So it made you listen and you got to listen to everything. But now, like, attention span's so hard, like so short, marketing, everything's so digital. And you kind of, it is a rough market. It's harder out there. I reckon it's harder back in the day to get your music out, but now it's harder to keep people's attention.
Yeah.
Getting the music out easy.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Does that change the nature of the music at all? Or do you still, in terms of how you guys put songs together, does that process still play out the same?
Well, 50-50. Like, we write a lot in the studio together, but now with the digital age, like, it definitely grows it a bit. So you still have the connection, even though you're not in the same room. Like a lot of people write stuff through Zoom now, but you do have the point where if we're like when we did our last record, we did pre-pro. We used to do pre-production with Nick, Jeff, and Terry in America. Now, usually he'd fly over here, we'd do a week of the songs, and he'd tell us what he likes and what to change and what he thinks would work and slow tempos and everything, and then we record. Whereas leading up to the last record, we sent him everything. He came over to Australia, and this is 6 years ago. So I can't imagine what it's like now, but he flew over here with all the demo tracks being like, all right, I know the record back to front. I'm telling you the track ordering. I know the listing. I know how I want to play this song. So we were able to send it over to another country prior. And now they're probably doing it through, like we're having a Zoom conversation. I could probably be playing my guitar here plugged into a MIDI system, Bluetooth into you, and you're recording it in Balmain.
Wow.
I reckon that shit's, yeah. So you probably lose the connection because same thing. Back in the day, I'd be at a show handing out flyers, being like, come to my show. When you see me, I'll be at the front of the stage. This is the face of Relentless, blah, blah, blah. Whereas now it's just from the Relentless page of a picture. So you lose that connection with the crowd. Same thing with doing the writing and stuff. You don't have the intimacy of, especially for bands that don't have the money. If you've got the money, you rent a studio for 2 months and you just write a record together. You know what I mean? But a lot of American bands, they even live in different states. Some Australian bands do too. So it's definitely, you definitely lose the connection of writing side by side. But as I said, the advantages of technology now make things incredibly amazing and simple.
Have you you're a carpenter. Have you worked that job the whole time through this music career, or is that?
No, so that's pretty much the whole reason why I'm actually thinking of writing a book one day or doing a list of, it's just going to be called Jack of All Trades, Master of None, because everyone asks me about what I've done, and you name it, I've done it. So the reason that Relentless took a big step back is because I got to like 29 in my life and I was like, guys, I got nothing to fall back on. I don't have anything. So I've been offered this opportunity to do an apprenticeship, and from the age of 29 to 31, that was when I did my apprenticeship. And it was probably, I don't even know when that was. I can't even count. But anyway, it was like 4 or 5 years ago now. And, or 6 years ago now. So I started that. So I couldn't travel for 3 years. I could go interstate and bits and pieces, but it definitely put Relentless on hold. But then I got my apprenticeship done and I'm able to travel now. But because I pulled the handbrake on Relentless then, if we start again, we'd have to really build it back up. I don't regret doing it because now I've got a solid paying job. I've got a trade. If I ever want to do Relentless stuff or sing for another band or go to America, I can always take time off and know I can get a job in America. So it was definitely a time in my life where I thought the band was going to be the be all and end all, and that's my life. But I needed something to fall back on. But during the time of traveling and touring, I went from driving a forklift out of Port Botany, rubbish removal. I was like a garbo. I worked at a desk at a tattoo shop. I managed a kebab shop in King's Cross. I did laser tattoo removal for a bit. What else? Yeah. Oh, mate, I was a pool tiler. Yeah, fuck. Anything, like even Dennis, my guitarist, needed work. So I was just through this job hiatus. I worked night shift from 7 till 7 p.m. to 7 in the morning at a milk factory in like Meadow Lee, out like Botany Way or out there, stacking milk cartons for 8 hours, for like 12 hours straight through the night, or plastic, like any factory work, because I would literally live off touring. That was my escape. Nothing else mattered. I definitely paid for it now, 20 years later, trying to pay off all my debt and my credit rating, but I would live off a credit card. So I'd be like driving a forklift. Hey, Trent, week and a half, want to get you to Queensland. Done, sweet. Sorry, guys, can't work. Well, you're going to lose your job. All right, sorry. And then I'd just get a loan or get a credit card, go away.
Wow.
Come back, have to get a new job. I don't know. That's just the way, yeah. And so I just worked. I got whatever I could.
And the touring was all on your dime.
Yeah. So it got to the point that we did Southeast Asia I think that was probably one of the better deals. Like, I think we paid for one flight, and then when we were there, each promoter paid for us to go to each different place, and then the last one paid for us home. But every time we flew to Europe or America, we paid the flights, and then most of the shows and merch covered everything in there. So we would take time off work. The way I explain to people is everyone's like, you're in a band? You went, fuck, where's all the money? I'm like, bro, I pretty much just had a free holiday for 7 years. Like, that was it. I had a free holiday. I'd pay for my flights, $2,000, and then you'd have food at every show, drink, you'd sleep on people's floors. The band paid for petrol. Your merch money kind of gave you a little bit extra food. And then if you wanted shopping, you'd pay for that yourself. But it was just like a very, very cheap, free holiday. Backpacking.
Okay. It's interesting to hear that because, yeah, for sure, people listen. They're like, man, you got a record label, like you're a music producer and you got a band that's toured around the world. Like it sounds like you're living it up.
It's all Instagram, mate. It's all pictures, brother.
Smoke and mirrors, bruh.
You tell me.
Would you change anything if you were going to do it again?
Nah, not at all. Not at all. Nah. Because, like, I'm no longer straight edge. I started drinking again. Don't regret that at all. The non-drinking part of my life saved my life. Drinking now, I can choose. I just did 50 days sober because I told myself I can. I was getting a bit bad at some point. So I said, Trent, you need to pull yourself up. And I was like, I've done it for 12 years. I can do 50 days. So I did it. And I can tell myself, it's like I'm in control now. Plus, I'm not telling myself that if I want to have a glass of red wine with my mother for her 50th birthday or 60th birthday, I can have one glass of red with my mum and then I can drive home. But back in the day when I was straight edge, I was like, no, not at all. So I was living by another set of rules. And so it kind of clashed with my morals. But then started drinking again, traveling, pulling a pin on the band, said no to a couple of tours, don't regret that, turned a couple of things down, don't regret that. And then getting the trade. Mate, I took pretty much a 50% pay cut from a big chunk to a small chunk as like a 30-year-old paying rent, paying a car, and barely scraping by. And, mate, I've come up. This is probably the most comfortable and best I've been, and I'm 35. Like, I've gone full circle. Wouldn't change a thing. I'm so grateful of where I am, the opportunities I've been given, the people I've met. Like, yeah, I've got a terrible memory, but I wish I wrote down a lot of my stories. But when people see me, they're like, oh, didn't you do? And then it rehashes, and I think it. So I've been very grateful for the opportunities that I've been given, the things. I never thought I'd ever really leave Bondi or Australia, never alone with 2 different bands, go to America 4 times in Europe and have those opportunities.
Tell me about the straight edge piece. Last time I saw you in person, I quizzed you on this because I found it super fascinating. And my cousin Rick, our mutual friend, he was straight edge when I met him. And I just knew that it meant he didn't drink alcohol or do any drugs. But tell me what it is for the uninitiated.
So straight edge is kind of like a subgenre, like a subculture underneath hardcore. It's usually in the punk hardcore scene. It was pretty much a band back in the day called Minor Threat. I think it's Ian McKay, the singer. He was making some flyers one day, and he never drank, never took drugs, and he described his lifestyle as a ruler. It's a straight edge of a ruler. That's just the way he lived his life was straight down the line. Pretty much abstaining from drugs and alcohol, meaning you were clean body and mind. Every action that you did and everything you did it solely for yourself because you were never under the strain of substance. You had nothing else in your system telling you otherwise. And it was pretty much like, I saw it as a rebellious thing too, because in a culture where, and I explained to someone today at work, in a culture where you used to come home from work and your dad will be like, fuck, that was the hardest day of work, and then go open a beer, light a cigarette, sit on his chair. You'd be like, oh, if I ever have a shit day, drugs and cigarettes, that's the way out. Mum had a stressful day at work. She comes home, glass of wine and a cigarette out the back, blowing up at Jennifer on the phone that she had a shit day. It's like, well, that's the way, that's our culture. Australian culture is like, if you're having a rough day, alcohol and cigarette cures everything. So it's ingrained in us for a young age. And then I just started seeing younger kids around me. I was down Bondi skate park, and there was one day I can remember it as clear as day. And all the young kids were drinking with the older boys, brown paper bags. And then one kid rocks up and just like dumps out of his hoodie all these like bottles. And I was like, what the fuck? He raided his mum's like medicine cabinet. I was like, what the fuck? And then all the older boys were like, oh, I wonder what we got here. And I was looking at that being like, I'm still young, but if this is the fucking demographic and the legacy I'm leading, like, or that they're leading, I said, fuck that. I don't want to be part of that. There's no way that I want the future to follow up in my footsteps and look at me and think it's cool at 13, 14 to steal your mum's prescription medicines, come down the skate park and drinking with the older boys. Like, so alcohol was big in my family as well. And that was another big thing that I saw different things fall apart due to that. And just the combination of them both, I was like, mate, I refused to be a part of this. So I abstained from it. It was more of a rebellious thing at the time. I was like, everyone drinks because it's cool. Fuck you. You're doing it to fit in, so fuck you. I'm not drinking. And everyone's like, oh, you're a loser, you don't drink. I'm like, no, I'm almost, not that I'm better than you, but drinking's easy. Try not to drink. Let's see how much you do that kind of thing. And then it just got to the point that I started going back on myself. After about 12 or 15 years, when I was a little bit older and I had a girlfriend and things, I was like, hang on a second. I've been living by this trying to be the big rebel and shit. Like, fuck you, I'm not going to do what you tell me. But yet I've been living by a whole new set of rules. And that was when I was like, hang on a second. Now I'm just being someone I don't think I am kind of thing. Or who's me to tell me that I can't do something when I should be in charge of it? And I had a bit of identity crisis there for a bit. And that was when I pulled one of my best mates aside and I said, mate, this is what's going on. He's like, really? I go, yeah, I just feel weird. I go, it's almost, and it's probably weird. I've explained it to people years ago, and it's probably weird saying it now, but it'll be like someone saying that they're gay, but they're telling themselves they're not. So it's like, I never used to drink, but I'll be like, oh, I really want a beer. No, you can't. You can't have a beer. You're straight edge. You can't drink, Trent. You can't drink. You're straight edge, blah, blah, blah. So then you start fighting with yourself that you are like, well, I want to be myself. If I want to have a drink, if I want, and then I was living by this title, so it kind of fucked. That was kind of a bit of a fight with depression there, because it was a bit of back and forth that I was in a very dark place of not knowing, like being the person I wanted to be and just drink and not be told what to do, and then living by the rules of me telling myself I have to do this stuff. And then had a drink once and it was just nothing. And then since then I'm just Trent. You know what I mean? No, I'm not straight edge. I'm not a drunk. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not anything. I'm just myself. And I'm happy, because if I didn't go through that when I was younger, I never would have saw the world. I never would have learned to appreciate myself, alcohol and drug free. And I wouldn't be able to know the maturity of what I am like now, to see where I was to where I am and be able to be in control of it.
It was how many years at straight edge?
11. From
Wow.
18 to 29. Yeah, pretty much end of 29. So what's that? 10 and a half, 11 years or something. Just before I turned, what's it called? I can't think of it. Just before I turned 30 was like, I had my first drinks in the middle of when I was 29. Yeah.
Right on. Wow. That's huge, man. That's, I mean, culturally that would seem, I know it would have seemed so strange to me at that age.
Yeah. Like I was sober. I was bad when I was 18. And then when I turned 18 December, and then so that was 2004, 2015, January 2015, I stopped drinking just after New Year's. And I was sober my 21st. 25th all the way to 30th was, I didn't have a party, but 30th was probably the next big thing. And I missed the whole festival. That was around the festival kind of times. Everyone was doing festivals and doing that. I missed all that. It was very hard at some point, because same thing, when I didn't want to drink, I didn't like drinking. I didn't fit in. So I didn't want to drink to fit in. So I'd almost just sit at home a lot. I'd go to the skate park by myself. I was very secluded. But the hardcore scene was the thing that was my escape. It was the one thing that accepted me. So I was very grateful for that.
How common is it in the hardcore scene for someone to be straight edge?
different areas. I think back in the day, Brisbane used to be very, very big. Melbourne as well. I'm not going to say 50-50, but good 35-40% of the Australian hardcore scene would. All that I know of, yeah.
And
so
for people looking in from the outside, that would seem totally counterintuitive because it's like a punk metal type scene, right? You touched on the aggression piece before.
Yeah.
That like people are like moshing in there, kind of smashing each other up a bit. Like it gets kind of violent in a friendly sort of way.
Yeah.
It just seems like drugs and alcohol are synonymous with that scene, which I guess typically they are. So that's a really cool kind of unique side to it.
100%. Like there's definitely, there's a lot of things. Like the other thing is looking from the outside in is another big thing, because a picture can tell 1,000 words and a video can say 10,000 more. Although if you don't know the backstory of a lot of them, they can be misinterpreted and differently misread. Like I could show you a video of a band screaming their heads off, going absolutely mental, and people jumping on people's heads and going crazy. And I could show the lyrics and they would baffle you. Like they're all about empowerment. They're all about unity, standing up for your beliefs, anti-racism, anti-fascism, anti-sexism, the political stance in hardcore is amazing. I almost see old school street hip hop and punk hardcore very similar, hand in hand. The same fuck authority, united as one, very anti-political, kind of coming from the gutter, making life through music. Like they definitely go hand in hand a lot. I totally feel.
That's cool. I had to listen to one of the tracks from you guys before, I believe, Betrayal.
Yep.
Yeah, and I can't understand what the fuck's being said.
Yeah.
Right? And that's you that I'm listening to singing, isn't it?
Yeah. The funny thing is that my mum reads the lyrics. She's like, Trent, your message is, can you just I want the people to hear. Can we do an acoustic song? Like your lyrics are amazing, but I don't understand them.
Would you do it? Would you do an acoustic?
Oh, mate, I reckon this is my problem, because I'm I need so many things to do. Mate, I've always wanted to do a hip hop thing. I've always wanted to do acoustic stuff. I can't sing for shit, but there's just one other thing that I want to do. I've got too many things and not enough time. Like I'd love to do, because I love writing music. I love writing lyrics. Like I'm quite lucky. Like I look back at some of the stuff I've written years ago and I was like, fucking hell, I didn't that's lyrically like really well written. I can't believe the English dropout can pull that kind of stuff out. But it's all for the punk hardcore. So I'd definitely love to do something. I don't even know. It could be like country ballad or something, because like you can make it relate to anything, using experience and life lessons, and just adapt it to a different song.
Good point. It makes me think of Mickey Avalon. He's got an album on Spotify that's him reading children's stories.
Oh, is it? No way.
Yeah. I mean, if you listen to his rap music, it's all about using drugs and
I was just about to say, I'm pretty sure someone said this to me, and I say this in the kindest way possible, because I found out about him when I was straight edge and I was really anti everything, like a little young punk, fuck everything. Like, but I swear he sings about sucking dick for rock, and now he's like, yeah. So now that's what someone said to me. He goes, oh, he's reading a children's book. And I go, isn't that the guy who used to like prostitute for drugs or something? I go, fuck, what a role model.
Right?
Yeah. Mate, it's an alter ego. He's Johnny McGee. He reads as Johnny McGee and then he sings as Ricky Avalon.
But it speaks to what you were saying before about being the jack of all trades. It's this generalist thing, right? And it's like there's a categorization that occurs when you're part of any subgroup. Like you're part of a culture, like whatever, I'm a gym guy, or I'm a jiu-jitsu guy, or I'm a gym owner guy. And you can kind of slot in and be a very particular way, but maybe you got interest in something else that's completely unrelated to that. Maybe maybe you are really passionate about kids' stories.
Yeah.
And and it's like, and I think kind of what I'm picking up a bit with what your story and also with the hardcore scene is that it's almost like a little bit of a backlash against these sort of this pigeonholing that's sort of occurred more so as we were growing up. And definitely, like, I think as we go, as time goes on, we get better at interpreting this shit as a society. But yeah, it was like where you can be multifaceted and have different things going on and be quite a wide-ranging person.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing. You definitely got pigeonholed when you were younger. You're like the skater, the surfer, the punk, the nerd, all this other stuff. And I think hardcore scene was a good place where all those things came together. You know what I mean? Like, I would tour and there'd be dudes, they'd talk about the nerd, like computer stuff. Like, lots of hardcore dudes love gaming. And I can barely even control one controller. So there's like the gamers and there's other people that are shoe dudes. And then there's the other people that are like bloggers and all this other photographer. Like, but then we're all underneath, like we come together under the hardcore scene as well. I think that's the one thing is like, the hardcore scene kind of brings it all together, I feel. You come from many walks of life and through the one passion and the one united music, nothing else matters. As soon as you walk in that door, him or her becomes brother and sister, and whatever the 9-to-5 job you do is left at the door, and you're there for the music, and then you go again. It's almost back to your real life, you know what I mean? It's like you clock in, nothing else matters. It's your other family outside, it's your therapy. You go there, you have your time, and you leave feeling relaxed. Maybe with a bleeding eye and a busted shirt, but it's worth it.
Tell me about you grew up in Bondi, and I saw on your Instagram bio. I'm guessing you're referring to it when you say Scum Valley.
Yep.
What was that about?
So I've just always, growing up around here, all the older crew used to call Bondi Scum Valley. So back when my dad grew up around here, it was all the old illegal gambling, the prostitution, all the Maldies used to run it. I forgot what it's called, the Astra and the Royal were like the two of the roughest pubs around here. If you weren't Islander or some sort of, like, if you're white, you wouldn't go into the Astra back then. Like, there's back in the days, it was a lot rougher around here. So Bondi back in the day used to be what South Sydney is, kind of more so now in the last 20 years. Like, hard, what do they call it? Like, I don't know the word. Like the blue collar, not hard workers. I can't even think of the word.
Working class.
Working class. That's the one called. Yeah. And then from there, yeah, we had the tram tracks down there. And back in the day, it used to be, yeah, it was just referred to. There's an old picture which I love. It used to be the old sewage plant, the old sewage drain coming out the promenade, and there was a big old like monster head, and its nostrils were the two things there, and that just is the epitome of Scum Valley. Even now, like, I remember I was walking with my girl the other day and she's like, "Oh, fuck, it stinks." I'm like, "Yeah, that's when you know you're home." She's like, "What do you mean?" I go, "Well, when the wind blows south, it pushes it from the sewage plant and washes all the way around Bondi, so you can smell salt water and shit." And that's Scum Valley. Like, that's the scent. That's you know, you're like, yeah, you can smell when the wind changes because it pushes it from the sewage plant down. And then, like, I think that one's it's more of a water sewage plant now. I don't think they burn it off like they used to in that chimney thing. But yeah, I've just grown up and I just love. It's even better. Like, I have a couple of t-shirts that say Scum Valley, and I was in Coles the other day, and this lady goes, "It's Scum Valley," and I go, We're in it, love. This is Bondi." She goes, No. I go, "Yeah, mate." I go, "It's changed a lot. It costs a lot more to live here, but it's still Scum Valley to me." Yeah.
Yeah, how about that? I'm sure, like that woman, there'd be a lot of people that'd be appalled to hear that their multi-million-dollar properties situated in Scum Valley.
The Tesla's just rolling through the streets of shit.
For anyone listening who's not from Sydney, Bondi is the it's one of the premier suburbs.
They call it the most famous beach in Australia.
That's fair.
Yeah, like that's not me. If anyone from like does a news, they're like, and here we cut to blah 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 from the most famous beach in, like, yeah, it's probably the most. It's on a postcards more than anything. Like, if you think of surf, sun, and Australia, you think of Ayers Rock in the middle, and then you think of Bondi Beach, like, or the Great Barrier Reef. You have your three different kind of Yeah, it's very tourist run. There's lots of shows. There's been Bondi Inc. tattoo short show. There's Bondi Rescue about the lifeguards. Bondi Surf Club do a show. There's Bondi Vet. There's fucking... So, yeah, guys, if you're out there and you want to be an entrepreneur, just put Bondi in front of it. You'll sell.
It's so true. You see it all the time. Bondi beer, Bondi fucking crackers. Like, yeah, I remember I actually applied for a job when I was traveling around the world just before I met up with cousin Rick, actually.
Oh, beautiful.
And I ended up down in San Diego. Before I'd gotten to San Diego, I was in Whistler in Canada, and the season was coming to an end. So everyone's making their plans to either get out of there and move on or do another season.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they advertised it, but there was a slick restaurant bar opening up in San Diego called Bondi.
Yeah.
And they wanted Australian staff.
Yep.
So it was like all these Aussies from Whistler were flocking down to this one restaurant trying to get a gig. I didn't get the gig.
You weren't Aussie enough.
No, I think you needed a work permit or something. I was like, I got nothing.
Yeah, no. Next.
So what one of the parts about this chat that I wanted to get into with you was something that you're very outspoken about, which is you're an advocate for mental health.
Yeah.
And the time we reconnected was when you turned up at my gym one day, and I'm like, bro, what are you doing here? And you're like,
yeah.
I'm here with Rise Foundation with Benny Higgs, who's been on the show before for any of our old school listeners. He was on the show probably about 30 episodes ago. And you guys were doing the walk, and it was like a 24-hour walk that started at our gym. And I'm like, holy shit, bro. And we recognized each other from when I met you back in Bondi.
Yeah.
So obviously being involved with Rise Foundation and Ben, it was like, oh, okay, you obviously feel strongly about mental health.
Yep.
You posted this fucking video that was heart-wrenching on your Instagram. I don't know, it was a few months ago, and it was just you like bearing all on the camera, bawling your eyes out, making a plea to, I'm guessing you'd had a friend that had killed themselves?
Yeah, we lost 2 in 2 days. Pretty much one the Monday night and one the Tuesday night, pretty much. And it was so close to the fact that, it was the Sunday night and Monday night because, Monday and Tuesday, because the boys were out Tuesday night, Tuesday afternoon. You still was in lockdown, but there was 5 of them having a beer at one of the boys' house because we just lost a boy. And then everyone went home. He was supposed to go home and he went straight to a park at South Bondi. So then we woke up the next day after the boys saying goodbye to everyone and finding out that 4 of them, 5 left, 4 went home. And then that was the Wednesday. I think I posted that on the Friday. But yeah, I'd never ever felt anything like that before. 2 in 2 days, so close to a community. Two different sectors, one skater, one surfer, connected by the beach. Like both skated, both surfed, but you knew one was like in the board rise, one was in the skate bowl. Like you knew they were 2, but then everyone knew each other as well. So yeah, it was a bit of everything. Like you had lockdown going on, no one could mourn. Everyone, and leading up to it, everyone was in their own little issues. And then so that was, it was gut wrenching. And I think I just hit a point where I think I'd lost, what was it, in the last 6, from Bondi, we lost another 17-year-old New Year's Eve as well. So it was like 3 from Bondi in the 6 months. And I think in the year that I was connected to, it was nearly 8 to 10. And I was just like, this is just, it's too common. I can't sit back and hide my feelings or my emotions anymore and just cloud it. I just needed to post something. I just didn't expect what happened to have happened from that post. Yeah.
When you say, like we lost a couple, like boys, like were they guys you went to school with, or were they dudes from around the area? What was the connection?
So connected wise, there was a 17-year-old kid from Board Riders who was pretty much the filmer. Like this kid surfed, young kid. He was always behind the camera. So every Board Riders comp, 3 days later, he'd post a little on his Instagram. He'd post a little 2-minute clip, and there'd be everyone on there surfing. There'd be all the clips. So that was in January this year. And the second one, he was 17, so I just knew him through board riders. Second one was the Monday. He was probably young as well, maybe 24, 25, local skater, drinks with my younger brother. So I knew him through my brother. When my brother was living down the road from me in the unit block, there was people in all four of them. He was always there. So that's how I knew him. And then the one on the Tuesday, he was a bit older, 28 still, or maybe even, 28. I would have known him from board riders. And he was like in the, what we would call like in the Scum Valley clique. So we have Scum Valley board riders. He used to win Scum Valley Cup. He won it 2 years in a row. Like, he was the winner of Scum Valley Cup in the Bondi board riders. He was the one that I was the most connected to. So it was only like 4 years difference. He used to do all the car. I used to work for a company that he used to do electrical work for, so we'd work together a lot. But I think he impacted the most because his connection with the community. His parents were big in the icebergs. His parents were big at Revisi's, and all these other spots. So not only was it a hardship on the younger generation, but his parents copped it hard too, and then trickled down through all his parents' friends. So that one was a big impactful one for the whole community, young and old. Sorry.
And do you, it sounds like hearing that, it sounds like that's a disproportionate. I mean, I know like obviously the last couple of years with COVID and lockdown has been hard on all communities, but do you feel like that's a disproportionately like large number of people to go by suicide from that one specific little area?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely such a short space of time. There's a couple of older boys I know, and they've had their stories. And I was a lot younger when they took their lives. But definitely high, definitely for this area. Yeah, because in saying that, me still calling it like Scum Valley, we are quite well off. Like a lot of people are quite well off around the area. So it definitely impacted. I definitely took a lot of hardship over these last little bits. And I think I'm not saying it's all connected to lockdown because I know I'm saying that this probably would have happened without lockdown. Like lockdown didn't help it, but lockdown is mental illness doesn't come because of being locked down. It's something that's inside of you that is emphasized by the lockdown, but not caused by it. And that'll probably ruffle some feathers. So I apologize, but I feel like it's always there and you're fighting it. And then the last demon was lockdown. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. What do you think that is? I think it's, obviously, it's like people got a lot of shit to deal with and there's a bunch of, but for someone who is in a community and connected with people and seeing this happen around you and having experienced depression yourself, what do you think is at the heart of a lot of this?
Honestly, and it pains me to say it because I've been in talks and I've started a couple of groups lately to try and talk my way around this. Drugs, alcohol, and gambling. And it is not the only thing, like, because I know a lot of other people. Actually, when I say this, I will say that at a younger age. Because they don't have the life trauma and life hardship that kind of comes when you're a lot older, family, kids, home loans, these kind of stuff, drugs and alcohol and gambling at a younger age. Your mind and your body's not used to the effects that comes after what the fun you're having. It emphasizes everything. You break up with your girlfriend, the only thing you want to do is go get drunk and take substances. Takes yourself from being around here to your energy level here, but you're like dopamine and all your emotions here. So while you have no emotion, your body's bouncing. They're misproportioned with each other, and you've got all this excess energy, but it's suppressing everything else down. And I think I think using it as a counselling and therapy mechanism too is definitely taking its toll on a lot of people. So they're self-medicating, drowning, suppressing, using drugs and alcohol. But I hate to say it because it is not the only, it's not the only thing, but it's a big factor in younger kids. I know, I'll happily say that. I definitely, and I know firsthand, being on both sides, being like 50 days sober off nothing and running and doing the things that I'm doing, how great I feel. Still will have a drink, but never want to get myself back to where I was. So substituting different routines with better, positive, healthier routines. Yeah. Because the thing is, you can't cut shit out straight. You can't cut shit out. It's got to be substituted. And that's the other thing. People lose their girlfriend, so rather than going to the movies and dinners, they substitute it for drugs and alcohol, or they substitute it for something bad. So if you lose something or someone passes away, I understand the coping mechanism and all that is it's suppressed for a bit, but you can't constantly self-medicate through drugs and alcohol and expect it to go away or expect life to get easier or move forward with it.
Do you think that some of that's tied into our Australian culture, which is, pretty excessive in its use of drugs and alcohol generally?
100%. Well, going back to what I talked about when we were talking about straight edge, you see your parents doing it. And I know firsthand, like my family back in the day used to be known around these areas as every pub. Like if they were like, oh, you're Trent. Oh yeah, you're not saying his name, but you're blah, blah, blah's son. Like you're known in the air, like a lot of people, like growing up in the area.
Yeah.
I grew up in Bondi. My dad's been here for 75 years. And then, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, he's that guy. Oh, he's a larrikin. He's a big drinker. That guy. I know him from this watering hole, this and that. So you're pigeonholed into that at a young age. And then same thing with video phones now. The Australian culture is always about pushing the level, pushing the envelope and one-upping. Like when the cameras come out, anything can happen. I'll tell you right now. 6-pack deep and someone's like, oh, do that. You could have just maybe jumped over a pool fence, but when the camera comes out, you try to backflip it. Just because. That's the Australian culture. It's just, yeah.
It's brown cardigan.
Mate, it is. And it started with Jackass and 2.0 or TK 2.0, whatever Bam Majira's one was, all those skatey guys. And then it went to tension with bodyboarding, and it went to like same thing. It's just fun pranks, and the problem is when you have people like me with touring, I'm very. People think I've been kicked out of places many times because they think I'm drunk and I'm sober. I'm the only one sober, but my energy levels are through the roof already. So you add drugs and you add alcohol and substance to that. It's a recipe for disaster. And there's no controlling. Yeah, once you're in, yeah.
Like a wild, untamable beast.
Exactly. And then it just becomes a competition almost, yeah. You just set in.
That's a really interesting point. I never thought about because, I used to fuck around with all that, growing up skating and hanging out with older mates and, whatever. Yeah, we'd be... I remember, when you start drinking as a kid, it tastes like shit, but you force it, like you get it down. You're like, I'm going to drink this long neck if it's the last thing I do. And then, over time you develop a love for it. But what it would be like to be in that scene, but then to have the camera thing. We didn't have that at that stage, right?
No way. It was VHS.
And if you were lucky, who had batteries and who had tapes? Your chances are you're just hanging out and it's just you and some friends at a place or in a room together.
Yeah.
So, whereas now it's like you can put it to the world, you can send it to your friends. So it changes. It changes.
You can make money off things. And funny enough, talking about cameras and all this other stuff, completely off topic, but I'm pretty sure it was Kevin Hart or Will Smith. And I saw a quote by one of them, and someone said, today's society is such a racist society. And it said Will Smith or Kevin Hart, it said, nothing's changed. We just have camera phones. See, back in the day, it was exactly the same. No one saw it. exactly what was happening now was 10 times worse, but no one saw it because now if someone goes, oh, you're a beep beep, someone goes, whoosh. Whereas back then it was happening. So it's not that we're like more of a racist society. It's always been there. It's just more accessible to be filmed and get caught out. So back in the day, we're still as crazy as that, but the accessibility to even there's one dude over in America where someone sends me and he does front flips onto fucking barbed wire. And I'm just like, but he gets thousands of views. And I keep getting sent it all the time. And I'm just like, I don't understand. Like there's so many, it's just the internet. But then I know firsthand, back in the day when I was growing up and I was down the skate park, you pulled out the camera, I'm trying to do an air. I'll break a wrist, but I'm trying an air. Because if it gets fucking caught on camera, I'm going down in history. You know what I mean? That's fucking signed, sealed, delivered. And that's what it was. It was this fucking like, I'm not going to remember it, but we're going to film it. So, we're going to remember it so you can show people. And it's a whole different, it's a persona. It's almost a fakeness that we would put on just because of that to outdo each other. Yeah. It's crazy thinking about this shit now.
I mean, it's real sad, isn't it? Because there's a real beauty to that. It's a lot, you think back to the good times relevant to that, whatever that thing is where you're hanging out and you're doing stupid shit and you're pushing limits and, trying to capture it. But we're also kind of acknowledging that behavior coupled with drugs and alcohol is
bad.
Kind of key to the problem, isn't it?
Yep. And the thing is, the worst thing about it is like back in the day on like a Nokia or the first thing, you'd film it and then you'd show your mates for the next week. But then now you do something dumb, you wake up the next morning and you've already got 50 messages from mates in Queensland going, I can't believe you did that. And it's like, thanks, Jono. Can't believe you just fucking shared that, but that's the way it is. So you don't even have a chance to question. Like it's a scary time.
I'm constantly baffled at why they let NRL players have fucking mobile phones.
I was just thinking that 4 of them just got done coming back to a party on Mad Monday doing something. Like I'm like, 1, why are you there? 2, you're an idiot.
Don't film it. Yeah.
And you don't even know the people. And he's like, I can't believe that they filmed me. It's like, because they don't care about you. It's money. They don't care about you. They stitched you up. It's been happening since Carney, since fucking, Pierce and mate. Boys, what are you doing? Stay with your crew. No one. Fuck. I should be the PR for fucking Mad Monday every year.
You should get it.
Every NRL club, I'll book you a fucking farm. I'll make sure everything's taken care of, and I'll fucking pat you down. There's no one going to know where they are until you get an envelope on the day, so you can't fucking tell Daily Mail or some other cunt and sell money to 50 grand to tell where the fucking West Coast Tigers are. You know what I mean? That's what it should be. The PR dude at the football stadium should be like, all right, guys, Mad Monday's booked. Get on the bus. Here's your envelope. Your phone's not on the bus, so you can't tell your wife where you are. You know you're gone for 3 days, and you come back, and no one knows where you are. Fuck. It's not fucking rocket surgery.
Mate, talk to me about this showing of vulnerability. Touching on that post of yours again, where you're bearing all, posting it on Instagram, and I saw it had huge traction. Right, anyone that watched that video was impacted by it.
Yeah,
just to see a man crying and talking about losing loved ones, and doing it for like a few minutes. Right, it's not just here's a few seconds of me crying today. But then also like acknowledging that we come from this culture where it's like we don't show a lot of emotion, particularly males. We tend to suppress it, and we're all very well aware of that these days. Where does that come from for you? Like, where did you get the awareness or develop the awareness to start showing your vulnerability?
I can say for myself, and I can definitely pick this in other males. Just to clear the air, growing up, I never got along with my father. We've only really reconnected now in the past 4 or 5 years. My parents split, and I just There's a lot of things about him I didn't like. And we've rekindled now. But so I was raised by my mother. I can easily say that you can tell a male that was raised by a mother or raised by his father. I can definitely see the morals and values that I share in thatness would have been coming from my mum. I'm a big mother's boy. I'm big on protecting your queen, looking after your female, but also showing that soft side to it. Because someone asked me in the podcast, I was always talking about, they always say man up and toughen up and all this other stuff, but they're talking about emotional traits or like toughness traits, whereas emotional traits for me of hardening up is being a provider. If you tell me to man up, manning up to me is protecting your mother, being a provider for your wife and kids, setting up a future for them. That's being a man. That's what I see as a man, not being tough. That's not being a man. I know chicks that could bash the shit out of me. Like, being tough doesn't make you a man. So the vulnerability side definitely came from my mum, seeing the way a mum can raise 5 kids, and the morals that she instilled with me, to always respect women and all that kind of stuff. But then I think it was just years and years of growing up in the hardcore scene. I'm a tattooed guy, listen to heavy metal music, surf, skate. So I was always the demographic of like a tough kind of guy. But I don't know. I've definitely always had it in me, I'm going to say, because I don't know if it came from anywhere, because I've always been a bit of another side of me is I'm a married celebrant. So I marry people. And everyone's like, oh, that's crazy. I would never expect that. I'm like, yeah, well, there is this other soft side to me, and I'm not afraid to show it or hide it. I love love. I love the thought of marriage. I love the connection and the fact that you're the single main part of that event, bringing them both together. You are pretty much writing the first chapter of their book together. They're the 2 chapters together, and you've developed the next one to bring them together. So I don't know. Maybe I've been an emotional kid growing up. Maybe I suppressed it a lot, and I tried to. Maybe that's why I take my aggression out singing as a hardcore band. And I don't know. But definitely the vulnerability and that would come from my mum. And then me just teaching myself over the years to not be afraid. I think that was what straight edge taught me. I grew up at Bondi Beach. Like, anyone that grew up in Bondi, from Bondi to Maroubra, it's a drinking, fast-paced madhouse. And to be able to make some of the hardest, whatever it's called when you find yourself, to be able to abstain from drugs and alcohol in that teens from 19 to 28, it's not easy. And I definitely built up a thick skin and self-reassurance that I never needed anyone to tell me what to do, and no one could ever break me with whatever I was doing. And I guess a little self-confidence in there to be that, like, not that I'm better than you, but I'm not afraid to do what I want, stand on my own and say that kind of stuff. And I think that all just culminated into that video.
How is that received generally? I mean, obviously that video was very well received, but in terms of that side of you and you being open with expressing that to your peers and whatnot, is it well received, or is there friction?
Well received. Yeah, I'm very grateful for it. See, because the other thing is, which I've definitely been told, I need to help other people with this part of me, because I've got this, I get anxious and I get depression, but I don't have anything wrong with self-reassurance. So I never feel, I hate myself for things I do, not hate myself for what I am. So a lot of people, like, I can put something out there like that and not get one comment and not care. You know what I mean? Like, nothing can harm me. I'm pretty, as I said, I'd spent so many years sober in a drug and alcohol fueled area that I'm happy with what I do. And so I wasn't scared with the response, but I got the most amazing response back. I got messages from people in the area saying, I got stopped by about at least 4 or 5 people I'd never ever seen before in the area that stopped me and like give me a hug and just say, hey mate, I saw what you did the other day. I want to say that's so brave of you. Thank you. You helped me out. And I just want to say the vulnerability and everything was amazing. I wish there was more men like that. I hope my sons grow up to be like that. I hope you're a role model for all these things. And it's amazing, but overwhelming too. Cause I'm like, fuck, it's almost like I've built this thing up now. And if you see me driving down the street and you cross the wrong way and I toot you, I'm sorry, but that's, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, like I feel like I'm, you know what I mean? Like it's not a different side of me, but it was definitely a bit of a pressure because it's like I went from nothing to this video's over 350,000 views. It was shared all over the world. I was getting messages from people in the UK saying I've had the worst week. Everything's really been getting me down. I've lost all my parents and my family to COVID, this and that. I was almost at the end, but your video got me through. Messages from parents saying that their sons are suffering from depression and they're drug addicts and they need help in this. And I'd try and give them try and tell them, but this was more of an impact. Like people were reaching out crazy, and that was very overwhelming. But I had to take it as it was because I never expected the good backlash, like the reception that it got. So when it started, I had to accept it and ride the roller coaster that would come from what I did.
Mate, that's special.
Yeah, it's very. Yeah, I can't. I went and looked at the analytics of it like the other week. Someone asked me about it. And I went and looked at it, and it was on Instagram. It was shared 10,500 times. Crazy. The crazy ones are the people that from overseas. Like Kelly Slater commented on it. He wrote something. Yeah. Fitzy from Nova 96.9, Gus Gould, like just all these people from so it was shared enough to get picked up by these people. I don't know. A couple of people, like it was shared on Brown Cardigan, they shared it. NRL Roast, Matty Johns shared it. Like so many of these, it's mind-boggling. But I think everyone that said something to me said it couldn't have come at a better time. He goes, Melbourne was struggling. Sydney was back in lockdown. People needed to hear what you had to say. And another thing I said about it is the reason I did it was to show my true self to my local boys around here and try and help some other people. And as Ben from Rise said to me, he goes, mate, it'll be an endless cycle now. He goes, this thing will just rehash and pop back up when needed. And I just said, as long as it touches the people and gets to the people that need to hear it when they need to hear it, then I'll be so grateful for posting it.
That's cool. I'll make sure to put a link to it in the show notes, just for anyone that that's listening that wants to catch it. Yeah, it's a powerful 3-minute watch. Mate, have you got any advice that you would give to someone who's battling with stuff, who's listening to this and thinking, man, fuck it, I need to hear some of this shit, and maybe they're a bit reliant on substances or alcohol, or maybe they're just feeling alone? Do you have some kind of advice you could impart on folks?
So don't hide it in, reach out. Now, I don't even mean that, like, some people feel less comfortable talking to their family because growing up, I didn't tell my mum knew everything about me, but wouldn't know everything about me, if that makes sense. Like, I'd hide everything from my mum because she was my greatest advocate, but my biggest fear, because if I let her down, I couldn't live with it. So if I was suffering with something, the last thing I want to do is go home and be like, Mum, this is going on. And she'd be like, oh my God, is everything right? And then I'd feel like I'm the victim and I'd been victimized and all this other stuff. So her talking down to me would make it a bigger deal. So I thought if I didn't tell her, then it didn't exist. So you need to find someone in your life that you feel comfortable talking to. My tags will definitely be up on this. And then I have other tags as well from Rise Foundation, Beyond Blue Helpline, all these other ones. You need to be able to speak to someone. Like, I've never really dealt with therapy, and I'm about to go back to it. After speaking to a lot of people, I've been told that it's the best thing ever. I reckon, I know it is, but I'm too scared to do it. Everyone said to me, it's the greatest thing ever. And I say, I've got this. And they're like, yeah, but they're not third parties. You're connected to these people. To be able to go to someone who doesn't know a thing about you, and you could sit there and say, F my mum this and F my mum that, they're not going to judge you. They're not going to worry about you, and they don't know your mum. It makes things a hell of a lot easier to get off your chest. The longer you suppress it, the longer you keep it in, the worse it gets. And find little things that take your mind off it. You need to find a substitute for what's going on. If every afternoon, let's say, for instance, a breakup. If you break up with your girl and every afternoon you used to call her on your way home from work and you don't anymore, and that little bit of a block in your daily schedule is gone, you need to refill it. So find one of your best mates. You don't even have to tell them about what you've gone through your day. Call him. Hey, Jono, how's the surf? What's going on this weekend? Just to fill that 30-minute gap driving home, because there's a void there now, and your head noise will be terrible because not only do you not be able to call her, but it's playing on yourself because she's on your mind. So you're thinking about her because you used to call us, and then you'll play on your mind, what's she doing now, and then it'll just trickle down. So you definitely need to substitute things and, try to put a little active plan to play, fitness, exercise. A lot of people don't like that. It could be, you could probably, rather than drinking, maybe start playing Nintendo or something. Get online. Yeah, but definitely reach out, talk to someone. That helpline you could just call them for a chat, really. I know people that have just been bored, and not bored, but like struggling. They just don't know what to do. They just call them, maybe say 7 words over 2 minutes. But they're just someone else on the phone. You just know that someone's there with you. So you're not in it alone. That's the other thing. I never reached out. I never used to speak to anyone because I thought I was on my own. I guess you just got to find what's comfortable for you, whether or not it's talking to a random, reaching out, getting advice. The hardest is the first step. I got a message the other day from a female that's saying, I nearly overdosed two weeks ago. I need some help. Can you put me in contact with some people around our age? Older people don't understand us like you do. I see everything you post and I really like it. I need some help. And all I did was wrote back saying, are you all right today? How's your day been? And I wrote back saying, that's probably the hardest thing you've ever done, but you took the first step. And I put her in touch with certain little avenues. In saying that, I'm not a trained professional. I've done courses on mental health response. So I know how to act around people. I know words to use. I know how to reach out. But then if someone's calling me saying they're standing up on a bridge, I have to put them in touch with actual paid professionals. I'm not a professional that's done degrees or anything. I'm just a bloke that's been there, that can open up and know what you're going through. That's pretty much, I'm just real, I guess.
I think that's probably the part of your cause that speaks to people the most, is that it's not your job. It's not what you do. Yeah. It's just like, you're a dude who's been through some shit and you're happy to talk about it. And I think that, obviously from the response you've gotten, you're having people whether or not that's something you wanted, right?
Yeah. Well, this is the bad thing. I've definitely said this before, but it is medication to me too. So I go through a lot of shit and I hate talking about it. I will say that. But when other people come to me and be like, Trent, I've had the worst day, these thoughts are going through my head, I'm like, all right, let's talk about it. When I hang up the phone, I haven't suppressed my shit. I've let it go. So these people coming to me for their problems, as long as there's not 1,001 every day, it is my therapy. I enjoy being a part of their development and their growth, and they felt comfortable coming to me, and that is my drug. That is my release. Yeah,
mate.
The helping side.
It's a beautiful thing you're doing, and I think your message is really. I think you got a lovely message, and I think there's a lot of people that hear this chat and just take a lot away from it, a lot of different shit, but a lot of good vibes.
Hope so.
Yeah, man. Look, it's we all know that guys aren't good at expressing themselves. Guys in Australia are even worse at expressing themselves.
Yeah.
You know, like there's layers to it. And I think that people are getting better at it. But to hear, you know, impressive, interesting, you know, cool guys talk about that sort of stuff in a real way is, I think it speaks to people, you know?
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
Man, I think that's a pretty awesome place for us to wrap up on.
Yeah. Amazing.
You probably got to get on with your Friday evening.
No, there's no footy on. I'll talk to you till Sunday. I'm bored, bro. Where are you going? Don't leave me.
Oh, it's grand final, isn't it?
Yeah.
But wait, you're a South Sydney supporter?
No, sorry. I'm a chookie because I'm the Bondi side.
Fuck, they've got like 5 fans, don't they?
Yeah. Four. I'm the 5th. Yeah. Nah, so like I even messaged one of my mates because he's my bra boy mates and all my people from Maroubra. I love when Chookies versus South because I'm not a hateful Chook supporter. I don't hate South. I love the rivalry. So when we verse them, I'm like, yeah, you fucking toothless. Like, I'm like, yeah, I can't wait. But then when they like, if South win, I'm like, boys. Like I called the boys the other week. I said, mate, I was cheering for Manly and you fucking touched them up. And that's come from a diehard Chookie. I'm like, I'm going for Penrith for the grand final, but I'm fucking worried. The way you guys played, even without Latrell, like South, mate, their backline, since they got Latrell, you guys have got one of the best backlines in the fucking, like, easily. Like, Penrith, Melbourne, you guys, mate, there's just name after name after name.
Latrell moved from Chooks?
Yeah, thanks for rubbing it in, mate.
Okay, no, I'm not a huge fan these days. I'm a Manly supporter. How about that?
Yeah, well, I went for Manly last week with Tommy. Plus, they killed Chookies the week before.
Right.
But yeah, Latrell left us. What's his name? Russell Crowe, and that got him over there. And Bennett pretty sure Bennett got him over there to win the premiership because that was his last year. I think Bennett leaves the South, I think, this year. But he pretty much got him over there. And then, funny enough, this will kick up some fuss. So sorry, all the South supporters out there, but when they versed Roosters and he put that shot on Manu, that's what put him out for the 6 weeks. So I don't disagree with that, but I do disagree with the judgment. I believe that the grand final should be, you should get judged and docked, and if you do something wrong, you should suffer the consequences. But I feel like there should be an exception for grand final. You can't tell me that you play a whole fucking year, 24 rounds, fucking you sober for the whole thing. You sometimes don't see your family. You're slogging away. And then 2 weeks before grand final, you put one shot on, or someone slips and falls and you put an elbow into their face or something dumb like that. You know what I mean? Like the week before, and then you sit out. I go, like, as much as I was like, bro, you killed Manu's career for the rest of the season, all this other stuff, I'm like, give him a 6-week ban. And this is from a Chook supporter, but I feel like sitting out the grand final, like, some people will never get, like, this could torment them for their life. They could play the whole year, miss the last 4 games, the grand final, and never have another chance. You know what I mean? Imagine Latrell, touch wood, doesn't happen, throws a socket next year and can't play again. It's like you threw away his one chance. You know what I mean? I feel bad for him that he sits out the grand final.
I got to see this hit on Manu. I've not seen it.
Oh, mate, he's fucking, he loses. I think he's sunk an eye socket and it's fractured. And they say there's one test you can do to see if he does it. So what you do is you hold your nose and you push your air, like you pop your ears. And the trainer tells him to do it. And you see this go and it balloons straight away. So there was a hole in his breathe cavity. So when he popped, it pushed his eye out. You saw this big balloon just go pop. Yeah. But fuck, so he was out for 3 weeks for the rest of the season, and his Christmas, he's in hospital. Like, he's got to get his face reconstructed. So, and that's pretty, like, most people would say, like, oh, serves him right. I'm like, yeah, bruh, but you don't understand. Coming from a Chookie supporter who's big on mental health, you're talking a kid who's worked his ass off. Yeah, split second could throw a fucking punch. In that split second, it's the dumbest thing you've done. But then, mate, this could ruin his life for the rest. Sitting out the last 3 games in the grand final when they could win and never make another one, his mental health and his life could be depicted from, you know what I mean? It's like, there has to be something. Yeah, and this is me talking about South support. If this was a Chook supporter, I'll be burning the place down.
Well, mate, our gym's in Botany, so it's mostly South supporters.
Yeah, I can imagine.
They'll be
Yeah.
you've just resold them. They were hating you for the whole episode, but now they got them back.
They're like, Latrell, fuck, this guy's all right. And back to Chooks. Delete, mute.
Mate, thank you. I really appreciate that. It was great to catch up. We've crossed paths many times, but actually finding time to have a conversation.
Mate, this is amazing.
Is rare.
Rehash this friendship, mate. I did not see you in nearly 5 to 6, maybe 10 years, and then seeing you at that Rise Foundation walk, and then being like, this. I'm like, yeah, we're starting here, and you're like, this is my gym. I was like, what? This is amazing. Like last time, as you said, probably last time I saw you, we were at a punk show in your living room with a skate ramp. Let's be honest, that was it. And now you're a father and a gym owner in Botany, and now we put this together. It's amazing. And once lockdown's over, I'm going to come out for a train. Mate, I can't wait to. This is the start of a long friendship. Back, it's just rehashed. We just had a 10-year hiatus. Now we're back.
Mate, I would love that. Come out. You can hit some. I'll do some pads. I don't fuck with the boxing with the Thai boxing classes at our gym because I'm a grappler. But
I want you to teach me that grappling shit.
Well, I know you're a bit of a boxer, so I'll do a Fight Factory class with you, and we can do a bit of grappling as well if you can.
Done. My core's terrible. I haven't touched my toes since I was 15, so maybe we can do some of the core stuff. I'm all kind of fucked up. I've got a 50-year-old body.
Mate, this is what we do. This is my wheelhouse. We can fix you.
My man.
Man, if you got anything to plug, where can people follow you? Where can they find your stuff?
Mate, at the end of the day, I know it's a bit cliche giving myself one, but yeah, at Trentless, TRENTLESS. That's just my Instagram. And there you can pretty much find anything. My label, my band, Marriage Celebrant. And this will probably be, once this time drops, I'll probably have my clothing label called Endless Story. That drops in about 2 weeks. So that website will be live by then. It's just a streetwear clothing label that will hash on a bit of mental health. Pretty much raising funds if I can. So I'll do definitely collabs with a lot of foundations, a lot of stuff to raise awareness and yeah, just have a bit of fun with that. So Endless Story will be launched by then. But yeah, check out Trentless and you'll be able to find me on everything.
Awesome. I'll make sure to link to it in the show notes. Bro, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Oh, thanks for having me. Absolute pleasure. Enjoy your evening and have a great weekend. Have a great long weekend.
Thanks. Yeah, long weekend, lockdown, same old shit.
It's longer inside.
Yeah, that's right.
I love it. All right,
guys,
Joey, take care.
Trent, my man, thank you.
Pleasure.
Guys, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. Man, Trent's a ball of energy, epic episode. If any part of that episode spoke to you, please take a screenshot of it, share it with a friend. If you know there's someone out there who would benefit from hearing the chat, it's a really cool thing you can do to help spread the message and support the show and just to give people, this stuff that we're putting forward. Thank you so much. We'll catch you next week. Peace.